Hey guys, so in today's video we're going to be taking a look at why RAW is so important, especially when you're starting out in photography. A lot of people ask me what RAW is. So basically the difference between RAW and JPEG is that RAW captures more data. So for instance, if you shoot underexposed very slightly or overexposed very slightly, then you're able to kind of adjust and make the differences that you need to. So I've got two pictures here on screen. They're the same picture, but one of them is RAW, the other one is JPEG, so they're exactly the same size. The only difference is one is RAW and one is JPEG. So here's the JPEG one here. Now as you can see, everything's kind of nicely exposed in this one anyway. The clouds are a little bit blown out in the background, but nothing too drastic. So I'll show you what I do. If I decrease this, let's say by 3, let's do -3, you can see that you've got a little bit of detail there in the clouds, not too much. You can't really bring it back too much, but if I go over to the RAW and I reduce this by -3, you can see there's actually a lot more detail. So you can see, especially at the top area here, you can see how much more detail is when I change between them. Now this is really useful if you do accidentally underexpose very slightly, or you're in a difficult situation when you can't really control the lighting. It's really useful to have RAW. You can either shoot in RAW and JPEG if you're just starting out, but I shoot mainly in RAW because that's what I prefer to use, because it means that I can bring it back to this, you know, if I really do need those details. And I'll show you as well, for instance, with the shadows. So if we just reset these two, if I just bring up the shadows here, you can see what this one looks like. Let's do it 10. Let's see how 10 looks. Do a little bit more than 10. Let's go 50. So you can see what that one looks like, and then we'll go 50 on this one as well. And you can see there's not very much difference, but if you look very closely, you'll be able to see that there's a little bit more dynamic range when you bring it up in RAW compared to when you bring it up in the JPEG. You see, this is the RAW there, this is the JPEG. Now, depending on obviously what device you're viewing this on, that might be quite difficult to see, but if you do underexpose, it's very, very useful for bringing that back, because it will actually capture that detail, whereas JPEG just captures it straight off. RAW actually captures more detail, so you can bring them both back, so it's really useful. So yeah, that's basically why you should use RAW. If you're starting out, it could be a really useful tool to you if you're not quite sure of your settings, whether you want to, you know, whether you accidentally overexpose, whether you accidentally underexpose, you're able to kind of push them back. Now this is actually available on DSLRs mainly, but it's also now available on some newer phones. You can even use the Lightroom mobile app, which is a really useful piece of software. That's what I've got on here. I've got the Classic CC. But you can actually get it on mobile, so if you shoot through the Lightroom app, you should be able to shoot in RAW depending on what device you have, and that could be really useful on your phone as well, because it means that you can bring back that detail that you need. And obviously there's a point that you can bring it back. When you start to push it too far, you will introduce noise, or, you know, if you've blown out your highlights too much, you won't be able to bring back that detail because they'll be completely lost. So a really good tip is to actually make sure that you underexpose very slightly. So expose for the highlights and then bring it back in post. Now, depending on what camera you have, it can introduce some noise. Now there is noise reduction, but the problem is it makes your picture quite muddy. But a little bit of noise isn't too bad at all. There's nothing wrong with a bit of noise. It kind of adds a bit of characteristic to it. So definitely, if you've got a DSLR, change your setting to RAW now. If you have Lightroom, or if you don't have Lightroom, I'd definitely recommend you check it out if you are trying to, you know, get into this more seriously, and to have a look and have a play around with it. See what it's like for you. See whether it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then that's fine. But there's no harm in shooting in it. Now, the only caveat with it is the fact that it does take up more room. So JPEGs are compressed, they're a lot smaller, whereas RAW is very much, you know, the best that you can possibly get. So I'd recommend, if you want to shoot in, you know, the highest quality possible, be able to bring that back, then shoot in RAW. But if you are really looking just to shoot quick snaps, you want a whole bunch of them, then you can shoot in JPEG, but I'd definitely recommend RAW over JPEG. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to keep up to date with more tips and tricks, make sure to click that bell icon as well so you can keep up to date when I'm making another video. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.